back after a long time with another Excel hacks tutorial video, and this time around we're building this dynamic map template in Microsoft Excel that on a click of a button changes the colors of a map. And this is the map of Nigeria. Interesting enough, I'm releasing this on our Independence Day, so let's get into the tutorial. So the first thing I do is on a blank sheet in Microsoft Excel, I set up the area for the table that you saw in the demo video we just watched, that shows the states in Nigeria, and then the supporting information which is used to color the map. I then bring in the map shape, and this map shape is a combination of the state shapes, the shapes of the states in Nigeria, and they are all separate. Unlike your typical JPEG or PNG picture of the map of Nigeria you see, this one works like an actual map, and it is a group of the units that make up the country Nigeria. The units are states, and it's all grouped up, and they can be grouped and ungrouped. This shape works like your typical Microsoft Office shape. You can color it in, you can change the fill color, the font color, and things like that. I brought in the shape, and then I've also edited the background cell so that the color of the background cell so that it stands out. The other thing I've done is to bring in the names of all the states in Nigeria, which are 36 states plus the Federal Capital Territory. Ordered them alphabetically, and there is this feature in Microsoft Excel that allows you to change your data into a data type, common data type, currency, stock, geography, and I used that. And once I do that, you see the icons that show to the side of the data that indicates that they have now been converted to that data type, and now they are working as a data type. I can enhance the data by adding on unique fields for population. I can bring in the population data, the area data, abbreviation, and all those things that show up in that card, and I'm just demonstrating how that works, and I'm just going to remove it because I just wanted to show you how that works. So I like that because I like that feature because it enables me to expand data and add data, related data points to it, which is important for me to demonstrate what I want to demonstrate today, because I need to find either population or area data to add on to the data so that we can have a unit by which we can vary the colors of the shapes. So like I mentioned on the state shapes, they all act like your typical Excel box, your typical Microsoft Office shape box, rectangles, circles. You can select them, you can edit text in them, you can change the colors of the shape, you can change the border color or line color of the shape, and you can do different things to the shapes. And what we're now going to do is to create a VBA code that is going to enable us change all the colors of the shape at the same time. And the logic of that code is that it's going to look through each state shape and then apply the right color. And to have a VBA that is able to look through the state shapes, I'm creating a helper column that is essentially pulling in the names of the states, removing the states prefix suffix at the end. So Bauchi state, I just want Bauchi, and I have named the state shapes. The name, I can, as you're clicking, if you can, as I'm clicking, I'm making reference to the name box, and I have changed the name of each state I've named the shape essentially. So as you see, as I click into the shape, you can see the name in the name box. Of course, naming in Excel does not allow spaces in between. So for states that have more than one word in their name, like Cross River, Akwa Ibom, I had to put an underscore, and then that underscore is also reflected in that helper column that has all the names of the states. So once I have set that up, of course I've named all the states already before I started this video to save time, and I'm just adding the helper column. Now I've set up the helper column, what I'm going to do now is to bring in numerical data that I can group and then use to determine a logic for coloring the states with a different color, and I'm using population to start things up. Now I have, and using the data type functionality in Excel, I've brought in the population of all the states, and I just check them and sum them up, and I see that yes, it looks like 190 million, so I think I have the right population data. So I have the population data, but I have to group this data into categories, and the categories would then determine the logic of the key, which states will be colored out blue, which ones will be colored out red, yellow, and things like that. And to be able to categorize the data, I'm using I'm using quartile bins. There are different ways you can use to categorize data, but for the purpose of this demonstration, I want to use quartile bins, so that the quartile bins would give me 4 distinct categories, and each state will be able to fall into one of each category, one quartile bin, so to say. And based on the quartile bin they fall into, they will get the color. They will be allocated. The states will be colored. The state shape will be colored the color of the associated quartile bin. So I have set up that quartile formula to identify what the minimum value first quartile, second quartile, third quartile, fourth quartile is, and this is a simple Excel function, quartile.inc, and then you use it, apply it on all the data that is available, and it identifies the minimum value, which is the state with the lowest population, the maximum value, which is the fourth quartile, state with the highest population, and then the mid ranges, which are the second quartile, third quartile. Yes, identify that. And what I'm now going to do now is to allocate each state into a quartile bin based on its population. And to do that, I'm going to use a complex nested if function. And the nested if function is essentially checking each state's population, which is the data in column I, and it is running a conditional, and it's testing it's testing it for 2 conditions. If it falls between the minimum value and the first quartile, allocate it to quartile bin 1, that is return number 1. If it falls between, if the number of that's the population number, falls between the first quartile and the second quartile, allocate that state to quartile bin 2, that is essentially return 2. If the population falls between the second quartile, the number of the second quartile, and the number on the third quartile, allocate it to quartile bin 3, and if it falls between the third quartile and the fourth quartile, allocate it to quartile bin 4. And this logic I've just spoken through is what I have converted into a combination of if and and statements in a nested if function. So it's going to look like a long formula, but I'm hoping that with the logic I've spoken through, it kind of comes together. So I'm using ifs, and then I'm using and. So the and function, and what the and function does is that it takes 2 conditions, and if both of them are true, it returns the answer for the answer for value if true, which would be what we have defined, which is allocated to the quartile bin that meets the criteria. Because we're testing 4 different functions, it's essentially 4 if and and statements all nested in one into another. So that is the logic you're seeing, and I'm going to type it out on the screen. Hopefully it also which I hope would also make it clearer. So we are testing each population. The formula I'm setting up now, I'm going to drag it out to all the other population data in that table, all the other 36 states, for the other 36 states. So you can also see that I'm making some references fixed, absolute, and some varied. So the reference to the population data is relative, not varied, relative, because I want to drag the formula out, and I want the formula to change as it hits each new row, each new record. While the reference to the quartile table the one to the right of the screen that shows the first quartile, second quartile, third quartile, fourth quartile values. Those references are fixed, and why they are fixed is because as I drag out the formula, I do not want those references to move. I want the formula that I'm dragging to 36 rows to still keep on pointing to the same table. So that's why you will notice that some references in this formula have the $ in front of them, indicating that they are fixed or absolute, and while others do not have the $, indicating that they are relative. So with that in mind, I have set up the formula, and then I had to go in to update the formula because I missed out the if in front of them. I essentially just typed out 4 ands, but I was supposed to type out 4 ands and 4 ifs, but I typed out 1 if and 4 ands, and I've just gone back in there to update the formula. Something else I updated in the formula was I initially made it greater than or equal to the quartile above it, but it should be less than and equal to, and then I just updated the arithmetic functions as well, but the logic still remains. The logic is essentially as I've spoken it out. I just made sure that the function I drew out was reflecting the logic I was speaking through. Now I've set that up, and I have, as you notice, the quartile bins in that table have different colors, and I'm just pointing out that these colors, I made sure that the colors align to Excel color themes on that Excel color palette. And why I did that was that I wanted to make this templates dynamic. You know, I'm always building dynamic templates that can be reused and reused and reused. So I wanted to make sure that for every kind of use you have for the dynamic template, you can change the color to the theme. And at any point in time, if you want to change the theme color, you can always go in and edit the theme colors just the way I'm demonstrating right now. Now all of that is set up, it's time to start coding. We're now going to go to the VBA window, which we access by clicking the developer tab and clicking VBA, and this brings us to the Microsoft Visual Basic screen, and we are going to create a new model. Excuse the other models that are on this particular document. We're going to create a new model by clicking insert and clicking module, and we're just going to start writing the code. And as always, when we start writing our code, we start with the opening line and the closing line, which opening line being being sub name of the code, which is a name of this code I'm writing is update mark color, open bracket, close bracket, and then the ending line is end sub, and everything, all the other parts of the code are going to be in between these two lines, the opening and the closing line. Next thing I'm going to do is to create a for next loop. I'm creating a for next loop because this VBA macro I'm writing out involves looping through multiple objects in the worksheet, and the multiple objects are the multiple shape items I'm looping through and the names of those shapes. And because of that, I'm going to use a for next loop, and I have written out the for next loop. It is for, and I'm using I as the variable that is going to track the different units, items in that for next loop. So my for next loop code reads as for I equals to 1 to 37 because there are a total of 37 shapes, and it ends with next I, and all the items, all the instructions I want the code to loop around are going to be in between the for and the next sentence. Now I've set up my for next loop. The next thing I'm going to do is declare, and I'm breaking down this code into steps so that I can follow along what is happening at each stage. And once I write a line, I would go to the worksheet to test out the line so that you can see exactly what that line is supposed to be doing. The next thing, so the first thing is I'm going to pull the first name on the list, on that helper column list, and I'm pulling that first name into a cell, a visible cell that we can all see, range R1, and I'm going to ask the code to loop through loop through the names in that list, and I'm just going to run that code so that you can see how the code works. So I have done that, and then the line of code I'm using to run that activity is range R1 dot value is equals to application worksheet function index range state lists I and 0. I went back to the sheet and I named that helper column, all the items on the column except the heading. I named it state underscore list, and I used that name so that it's easy to reference the lists in the VBA section of this sheet. Once I've tested the code and I've confirmed that it works, I don't need it to really write into range R1 value, but I wanted to make sure that what was writing to the string variable is the right thing. So I've changed range R1 the value to my shape, which is the string variable I declared in the second line of the code. So the next instruction I'm going to write out in the code is to assign the shape variable a shape, that's what I call it, the name of the active state, the state we're working on at that point. We're now going to test out a code to color out a shape, and I have written that code. I just essentially selected an RGB color that is unique, and I have selected, and I'm going to use that to test the code, so that we're going back to the worksheet so that you can see how those lines of codes I've written already are working. So we've established that the 3 lines of code we've written in the for next loop are working the way we want to work. And now what we are now going to do is create conditionality, because we don't want the shape, the maps to all have the states in the map to all have the same color. We're now going to assign conditionality by identifying what bean the state's population falls into, and then change the color of the state to match the bean of the state. I went back to the worksheet, and then I named the bean 1, bean 2, bean 3 before, the ones that have the beans that have the colors. I gave them names. I named the ranges so that my code will be able to refer to the color of that bean. So color 1 being orange, color 2 being green, and on and on. I named those cells quart 1, quart 2, quart 3, quart 4, because I want the code to identify based on the table that shows state name, population, and quartile bean. If Bauchi state, for instance, is in quartile bean 4, I want this code to identify what quartile bean Bauchi is in, say 4, and then color out the shape of Bauchi states with the color of the table, the color blue, which is the color that aligns with the quartile 4, the quartile bean 4. That's essentially what I want the code to do. So I know I'm removing a couple of things and adding a couple of things, but that is the logic of the select case and end select lines of code I'm writing out in between the for next loop in this code. So I have tested out, I'm testing out case is equals to 1, and I've written out the select case and select, and I have and that brings me to the end of the code. I just added another line of code to clear out the names in the states because I wasn't quite satisfied with how they were showing. But for anyone that wants the names of the states to show, it's very easy. You can always bring it back up, and I added a commented out line to bring back the name of the states. But they were not formatted well enough, and I didn't feel they were adding value to this particular visual I was creating, so I just added a line to remove it, and I've commented out the line. It no longer works anymore. So I've tested it and it all works out, and now I'm varying the state data selected from population to area, and you can see that I just changed it. By changing it to area, the template still works fine. As I updated the data to area, the quartile beans got updated to reflect the new data groupings. I have also added the update map button, so that you are which enables you access the code, run the code from the front end to the front of the visual. The idea of the button is that you are able to run the code at the click of a button, and you don't have to go to the developer tab or to Visual Basic Editor to run the code. It enables you to run those lines of code from the front end. And essentially that is it. My template is all set up. All I'm doing right now is just really enhancing the visuals on the front end of this template. I've hidden the helper columns. I am formatting the table so that I'm formatting the data set so that it looks like a nice table with rows, and also going to just change after a while I just decided to change the entire background to black, just the way it looks in that demonstration video. And of course, by changing the background to black, I had to change all the text to white and make sure that none of the color cells were affected. Off the camera, I brought in the key, and the key is essentially a linked picture. I copied the cells, the colored cells 1, 2, 3, 4, and I pasted them as a linked picture. That way, every time the color scheme on the quartile table gets updated, the key will get updated as well, and you don't have to update the colors there and then come and manually update the colors in this area. So yes, that's it, and the template is all ready. And if you want to get a copy of this template, I have included a link in the description of this video for you to be able to get a copy of this template if you want, and it's available on my seller page. All right, thank you for watching. That's it, and I hope this was interesting to watch. I had quite a bit of fun making this, and yeah, it is, like I always try to make a dynamic template that can be reused for different purposes, and it's flexible enough for different types of needs. So thanks again for watching, and have a great Independence celebration. Take care everyone, and bye bye.